While many races in the universe of the 41st millennium have deeply travelled, explored and established a heavy footprint,
brought to you by the Chaos Gods, in the name of Slash, your favourite chaos-based war show. That's some nice armor. Welcome in, Robot Gillyman! Robot Jellyman, take Gorilla Man, Cleverman, Reboot Gilgamesh. Choose your side wisely. Put it in the beasteria. I knew you were gonna. And rise up against the Emperor of Man. I haven't had my microphone on for the last 2 minutes. Don't worry, you haven't gone deaf. Congratulations. Should have waited. I would have straight up did that whole stream with no mic on. I would have. Thank you for telling me. I cannot believe I did that. Hi everyone, my name is Harley. If you've been wondering where I am, I've had real life shit on. We're back to learning about Warhammer, and today is the Tau. For those from my Twitch who may not have seen this before, it's something I do over on YouTube. I have a fantastic community over there, and we learn about all things Warhammer. And I wanted to bring some of that to Twitch because I thought it would be interesting to show you all a bit about something that I have an interest in, which a lot of you obviously won't have experienced with me. I have been muted for the last 4 minutes, which is not as embarrassing as you'd think. If you take in, oh, my hair looks great, thank you, and there's your dab. One of your ears isn't working today, but why? Wait, why aren't one of your ears working? This has been a really great start to my Warhammer journey on Twitch. Thanks everyone for being here. Don't tell anyone that happened. My cell signal's not having it today. That is trash. Don't worry, I was muted for a while. Hi Dan. Hi Alpaca. Hi everyone. Let me get the first video on. This is Luton's video, the Tau race overview for beginners. Tell me if it's too loud. But yes. Thank you for changing the title. It's a very good title. How are we doing, Stan? Welcome in. In the grim darkness of the far future, there is only war. I'm excited. I like Luton. Has anyone seen this before? The Emperor's realm must be cleansed of the taint of the Xenos and the heretic. Destroy former. Ooh. Stranger, I bid you greetings in the name of Tau. If you're reading this and you have encountered one of our messenger drones and are therefore... Ah! Okay. We're all working towards the great good. 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 Protection of the Tau Empire. Down. That went so fast at times.
While many races in the universe of the 41st millennium have deeply travelled, explored and established a heavy footprint across the galaxy, the same cannot be said for the upstart forces of the...
Time for the space weebs. What a fantastic way for us to go into this. Thank you, Dan. Also, aren't these the people that tried to negotiate with the orcs? Tell me I'm correct. Didn't they try and like work with the orcs at one point and the orcs were like, LMAO what?
The Xenos race known as the Tau. They are a comparatively young race who, unlike the Imperium, have developed and advanced their technology, giving significant power
Thank you for confirming, Alpaca.
to their burgeoning empire. Today, we will overview the race known as the Tau.
Thank you for the like, Matthew Matt! Yeah, we're learning about Tau today. Oh, did you? I hope it was delicious.
The Tau were originally discovered in the latter part of the 35th millennium by an exploratory fleet of the Adeptus Mechanicus. At this time, the Tau were noted and recorded as being a fairly innocuous species who were seen only to have recently begun using simple tools as well as having learned to make, say, fire. They were clearly at the very early stage of development, whereas the Imperium of Man was already reuniting planets it had conquered millennia before. The planet the Tau inhabited at this time was also identified as being usable as a resource world by the Imperium, and at any other time this primitive race would have been subsequently eradicated from the planet, so that it could be prepared and colonized by humanity in preparation for the extraction of its resources.
So I'm hearing as colonization just got deeper in the future. Where is Dorian? I don't know where Dorian is.
The Tau, though, through a significant amount of luck, would travel a different path. Some might call it fate, for this xenophobic purging by the race of mankind would not occur. Violent warstorms would erupt around the Tau homeworld before the Imperium would have a chance to cleanse the planet, and the outbreak of the Age of Apostasy would descend on humanity as well. This was a power struggle between the Ecclesiarchy and the High Lords of Terror, as well as others who sought to exploit the internal struggles of the Imperium and would additionally prevent any further return to the Tau homeworld. To compound things, and how often this is the case with Imperium record keeping, the planet would be archived and forgotten about, buried in the seas of bound paper and labyrinths of archives that is the Imperial Administratum. The Imperium in short order forgot about these exploratory notations.
They need to get a computer system to track these sorts of things. I think if they had a really good case management system, they would do a lot better.
In order to pay far closer attention to more pressing attentions within its own ranks.
Yo, Stevie, welcome in!
6,000 years would pass until a ship of unknown determination would appear at Devlin in the Ultima Segmentum.
Why were chainsaws invented? Okay, you've got me. I need to know. Tell me. How are we doing, Stevie? I hope you're doing fantastic today. I know that usually I play games on Twitch, but we're actually doing Warhammer lore today. So this is also on YouTube. Hi, everyone. The childbirth. That is disgusting. But factual, so thank you for the fact.
After failing to identify itself, the ship was destroyed by the Imperial Navy. Bodies were recovered and examined. They were assessed, cross-referenced with Imperial records, and showed a significant match with a long since forgotten about 6,000-year-old report that described a primitive race who had barely advanced beyond the earliest beginnings of civilization. If this...
Well, welcome to YouTube, Dan. Don't take it as a bad thing. You're just chilling on the YouTube side of things. We're still learning Tau. You'll still be able to see everyone's chats pop up on screen, and I will make sure that any messages you send slating Alpaca are delivered.
This was in fact the same race that had been described millennia before. It was of an urgent and immediate concern to the Imperium. Seeing such fast advancement in the Xenos race, from using stone tools to building starships and voyaging into the darkness of space within only a few millennia, was troubling and would require prioritized exploration and information gathering by the Imperium.
So what we're saying is the Imperium was like, right, listen, I know you're complaining about the chat being upside down, but I've told you, send me a solution, I'll implement it. You didn't send me a solution. There we are. I don't know how you mod for 100 channel thingies, that's wild. But yeah, imagine like if you saw a bug, and you saw a bug, like look at ants, look at ants where they call their mates to pick up big things together. So they all come in and they pick it all up and they work together with their strength. Now imagine if they created like wheelbarrows. That'd be weird. Now imagine they created trucks. You hadn't seen them. Since they were picking stuff up as a team, but now they're driving trucks. I would also be concerned. And thank you for adding the quote.
Subsequent investigations found that even some human worlds that were in proximity to the Tau system had already begun trading with these Xenos somehow, and enough was enough. The Damocles Crusade would begin and initiate the first state of war between humanity and the Tau Empire.
Now imagine they created railguns. Exactly, Dano. Imagine they created railguns. Then you would be even more concerned. I get that the jump was a bit much for the Imperium. However, I still think it's deeply rested in xenophobia. You know, that's the space war for you. I would rather be a lizard. No more questions.
The Tau are an unusual race by the standards of the 41st millennium, for they are neither a race of bloodthirsty, instinct-driven monsters seeking purely an ever-ongoing plague of war, nor are they irrationally xenophobic or choose to base their way of life around some grandiose ideology of either conquering those who resist them or the absolute destruction of all. They do though seek the expansion of their empire.
I'm not going to be able to unsee that, thank you.
And through force, if necessary. For the Tau, all their societal directions are governed by an overarching philosophy they refer to as the greater good. As stated, unlike other races in the darkness of the future, the Tau do not by default seek to eradicate other species as a matter of course, but they do aim to spread their philosophy, culture and territory. They do want to grow and further their civilization, to put it simply. Those individuals or planets who are unwilling or unable to open their minds to the benefits of the greater good are likely to face some form of more forceful persuasion, first diplomatically, and if this should fail or reach an impasse, then through physical force.
Am I the only one who, every time I hear the greater good, hears the greater good from Hot Fuzz? Because I can't be the only one. Me and the Tau pulling up. Listen, the Tau, right, from what I'm hearing and from what I know, the Tau are just solid homies that don't deserve A, the hate, B, the title of just being boring. I don't think they're boring, I just think they're pragmatic. I was just typing that. There was only one swan. It was only the one swan.
The greater good is at the core of Tau culture because it dictates and influences everything from their civilian life.
I'm glad, Stan, we're on a level here. We're all on the same point.
To diplomacy and warfare. The greater good is also known as the Tau Va, and this combination of philosophical and quasi-religious principles governs much of what...
Did he mean quasi? Did he mean quasi? Didn't like how he said that.
The Tau feel they must do and helps maintain their structure and lives. It operates around a caste-based social stratification system, which means that essentially a Tau's role in life is dictated by hereditary transmission into a certain workforce or lifestyle. Ultimately, these are embedded social classes in Tau society that ensure the majority of Tau have very little in the way of personal choices. However, it has been stated that Tau all have the free will to choose their own destiny, and the fact that they choose to serve the greater good and their lot in life is merely a testament to how righteous a path it is that all Tau choose to live by its teachings. In some ways this is not entirely unlike the Imperium across many worlds. For the Tau though, it is more embedded as a principle and taught as a fundamental balancer for their lives. For this reason it is more accepted and brings a sense of focus and serenity for many Tau, who were born never having to make a decision about what they should do. They will learn their place and then focus on carrying out that role to the best of their ability for their lives. Instead of either
At some point we need to do a watch party of Hot Fuzz deal, because Dan, I literally saw that entire thing in my head. Right, back to the Tau.
destroying or on occasion crushing into submission enemies as the Imperium does, the Tau rather seek to absorb others into their collective. This concept to most of the other races in the galaxy seems entirely unthinkable. However, it has been rumoured that pockets of Imperial forces who have been cut off from all other help, instead of making the correct choice of fighting to the death, and have actually allowed themselves to be absorbed into the Tau Empire and now live within their society. And these individuals are, to the surprise of no one, seen by the servants of the Imperium as heretics, and they should be purged and exterminated at the earliest opportunity.
I like a good heretic, what can I say? To be fair though, the Tau sounds like a better deal for these people. Die, or just like work to make things better for everyone. Ta-da! Like, they were already in a shit position. Like, they weren't exactly, you know, living the high life. Why wouldn't they pick this, you know?
Not before likely receiving an extremely thorough interrogation. The fundamental premise of the greater good, generally speaking, is that everyone within the Empire will work to the benefit of everyone else, to better the Tau's position in the galaxy and their collective quality of life.
Tau is communism. Tau are communists.
Because of ideals and the way by which the Tau unusually amalgamate other species into their society, they now already contain multiple other species as part of their collective. These include the Kroot, a savage species of bird-like warriors, Vespids, a strange insect-like species who utilize crystalline-based technologies.
Oh, why? Tell me about ethereals.
While the Kroot appear to have more like mercenary tendencies, the Vespid actually believe in the ideology of the greater good, and when fighting alongside the Tau will contribute to one another far more of a morale-boosting effect. The Tau have also adopted a species known as the Nikasa, a nomadic race who are powerful psychers, and they are travellers in space. The Tau use them near exclusively for this role of transporting through space. They are highly psychic entities, and consequently the Tau concealed their existence from their enemies and are only used for space travel purposes, not combat. The Nikasa contribute mainly ships towards the Tau Navy for exploration and scouting purposes.
I got you, Dan. I'll look out for them.
In addition to these absorbed races of the Tau Empire, there are also previously stated human sects that exist within the Tau collective as well. Conquered humans who by all rights should have chosen death rather than the heretical dishonour of serving the Tau. There are even those who have joined the Tau of their own free will, impressed by the concept of the greater good, as opposed.
Wait, yo, Ricky, welcome back! Haven't seen you in a while. The Night Lords just had a battle with the Tau, and there was an epic knife fight between Tau and occultists that lasted for 1 hour. The Tau stabbed poor Timmy in the neck. Rip. Rip. That's actually really cool. And where is Spinal when we're actually talking about the Night Lords? Night Lords v Tau, this sounds like Spinal's kind of stuff.
Opposed to the more severe nature of the Imperium. And as you would expect, these individuals are considered extreme traitors to the Imperium, and if discovered would be shown little mercy and suffer the worst of Imperial Inquisitors, or simply...
I was going to say, isn't that an Inquisitor?
While their ideological, philosophical and societal organisation is of interest and highly contrasting to the Imperium of Man in many ways, the most concerning element of the Tau for humanity is their technological advances and the
Tau Melee sounds good. She does look hot. Agree with you completely, Albaco.
speed with which they have advanced their hardware. Within a short period of just a few thousand years, the Tau, as stated, have advanced from using basic tools, making fire, and learning how to create basic foundational mechanics and engineering, to a transformation of an advanced spacefaring race with powerful weaponry and exosuits that are, at the very least, concerning to the Imperium. Far more worrying though is the possibility that if they were able to continue their current pace of research and development, they could advance beyond the weaponry and war gear of the Imperium.
I hope they do. I actually hope they do. You know what? I'm Team Tau.
Which has, largely due to ever-expanding religious dogma, allowed itself to stagnate and barely develop anything new, that is, until the most current period in human history.
Marcus, the Tau can't even fight in melee. They only use the move and shoot phase. F this, I'm joining the World Eaters. I can't go on, I must lobotomize myself. Marcus, that was phenomenal. Welcome in. What an entrance you have just made.
By contrast, the Tau have already become one of the more technologically dependent races in the galaxy, and given the Imperium's stubborn inability to
I bet they've got a case management system.
move forward technologically until very recently, with the return of the previously stasis-entombed Ultramarines Primarch, now returned to his place as Lord Commander of the Imperium is beginning to drag itself up out of the mud, every step forward requiring apparently agonizing effort. The Tau, though, may be inexperienced, but they're not fools, and ever since their initial contact with human settlements, they have played a highly tactical game of infiltration and suggestion to allow them to begin trading and eventually absorb some human worlds in their system.
So what I'm hearing is, we're playing checkers and they're playing chess.
As part of the Tau Empire. Yet these worlds were the dissident fringes of the human empire. Some worlds were even forgotten human colonies who had no real sense of themselves as being part of a larger Imperium of man. It took the Tau some time to grasp the understanding that there was a far greater and more powerful collected human society, and that if they were not cautious, could bring down a wrath they would not be able to defend against. So their initial steps were tentative, but would become progressively more confident. Some have seen fit to suggest that the Tau's speedy development of technology could be down to their locating a lost human STC system, but there's nothing to support this suggestion, and if it were true in any sense, you would imagine their developments would already be far more advanced than they are. The Tau simply demonstrate what can be achieved by a collective, focused sense of purpose and unified drive towards specifically directed goals.
I've literally said this, the Imperium is its biggest downfall on the fact that they don't know how to work together. The technology is completely not advancing. They're not as advanced as they used to be. Like I said, no case management systems. Their libraries are crazy. How are you even supposed to use them? Read? Ugh. But I think that's the biggest downtrod for the Imperium. I am Pisaria! Do you know about the Tau? Welcome in from the Twitch side. Tau about these nuts! Don't nuts. Don't these nuts me. In the middle of... Thank you, sorry.
If the Imperium had not critically hamstrung itself in religious dogma and bureaucracy, then it may also have been able to achieve far more than it has done over the past millennia, where instead it allowed itself to decay and rot from the inside. So this threat of being outpaced by an upstart race who should by the Emperor's will have been exterminated millennia ago is a sting in the side of the Imperium, far more than the actual literal impact of the Tau. With that,
the Imperium cannot understand checkers and the Tau play Go, the game with... You know what? I love Go. I was watching Go the other day. It's so sick. Literally such a good game. Has anyone actually played Go? Also, Pisaria, I've missed you. I now stream 5 days a week again. Just be happy about it. No one wants to listen to Cole. No, they don't. But seriously, if I could afford to stream 24/7, I'd do it. But I can't. Be happy. Yeah, but I'm back 5 days a week. Remember guys, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Twitch and YouTube. Thursday, just Twitch. Sunday, Twitch and YouTube, doing Warhammer. Stay woke, stay known.
That said, it is worth noting that the Tau have already proven their ability to hold the line against the Imperium, only further compounding the sense that the Tau are considered an ever-growing threat to the stability of the Imperium. Perhaps not a critical threat in the current moment to be sure, but it would be more than fair to say that unless things begin to change, the threat the Tau represent, as well as being all too aware of having missed a golden opportunity to eradicate them in the past, down to nothing more than petty human infighting between their internal divisions mean that the Tau are ever more irritating to the Imperium, and while additionally becoming even more dangerous a threat, the longer mankind waits to crush the Tau, the more difficult and dangerous that task will likely become.
Hey Big Stang, welcome in. F-Call, yeah, exactly. Not gonna lie. The Koyan is a great Tau short story, Tau vs Imperial Fist. That's really cool. I might actually look that one up. Can you leave that in the comments afterwards so I can see it? Big Stang, this is actually what I was doing on YouTube. So this is one of my Warhammer lore learning streams. So we put on a video, we learn about lore, we talk, we chat, we vibe. But thank you for the headband request. Hi Fru, welcome in. For those who are on my Twitch, obviously you don't know what's going on. I, every Sunday, watch videos on YouTube about Warhammer lore and I learn about it. Oh no, not today, that's why it's just chatting. So I'm learning about the lore because there's so much, like 40k is like a huge spectrum of different things, different events that have led to it, different species, different ways of coming together, and it's really cool. So that's why I'm learning about it. And it's something I've really enjoyed learning about, and it's something I want to bring to the Twitch side of things, so some of y'all can know a bit more about what I do and what I'm into and what I'm interested in. Starting a new job, it's an English-based company, so you should be happy. Well, congratulations. I'm not getting into Cadbury's discussion. I'm going back to Luton. Luton has the interest. Yes, we are doing Dark Tide next week though, with Bones and Nate and Dan, so look out for that.
Worse though, as Inquisitor Gallius would come to realise that the Tau exhibited a naivety not seen in other races, a distinct lack of understanding of the galaxy, its events and their place in it. Their technological advancements were matched only by their ignorance in the dangers of over-reliance on technology. Such things brought to the Inquisitor's mind scripts that he had read that described mankind before the Dark Age of technology, and while so much knowledge of this time is lost, it is believed that mankind's fundamental faith in technology and the over-reliance on machines caused the downfall of humanity and threatened to spread out beyond.
AI taking over. I don't need to hear that.
The Tau were already on a path to developing ever more advanced technology. It was surely only a matter of time before they began to develop that which the Imperium and humanity place among their most severe fears, the development of artificial intelligence, abominable intelligence. To that end, the Tau represent a clear and present danger to the Imperium of Man, and perhaps the entire galaxy, beyond what many could imagine. Like many races, the Tau began as an ununified species whose tribal groups would periodically spar with one another. They would have their own territorial space and defend it against those who infringed upon it. And in these early times the Tau were formed of 4 specific castes who were continually warring with each other. And the severity of these skirmishes, added with the uncompromising nature of the Tau at this time, is said to have risked the very survival of them as a species. And this period of brutal warring is known as the Mon Tau. It all began during a conflict between some Tau warriors of the plains and those of a fortress city, Phio Ton. The Plains Tau had assaulted and subsequently set up an encampment around the city, but negotiations had failed. The Plains Warrior Tau would not be satisfied until the entire city lay in ruins and its citizens were broken and slaughtered. The conflict went on for years, and despite holding out as best they could, the inhabitants of the city began to fall victim to deteriorating health and ever worsening living conditions. Starvation, disease were starting to take hold, and the situation looked bleak for the citizens of the city. However, it was at this time that 2 mysterious individuals would appear. One of these figures would walk steadily but confidently out from the enveloping darkness in complete silence, approaching the circled encampment of the Plains Warrior Tau and speaking calmly and softly. He would explain that he required to speak with their camp's commander. The guards to the camp found themselves unexplainably compelled to comply by this figure's confident and authoritative use of language.
The skill trees have changed significantly since you last played, so you probably want to look into it before playing. I will do, don't worry. I'll have it all ready for next week. Do not worry.
At the same time, another similar guard would appear in the besieged city and approach the guards within. When questioned as to how he'd been able to enter the lockdown city, he simply refused to answer, but instead requested to speak directly with the Castellan of the fortress city. Despite the years of bitter fighting between the two groups of Tau, the strangers came into the centre of the conflict with a dignified sincerity and overwhelming calm confidence about them that radiated onto those around them. This strength of presence, combined with their skillful abilities in diplomacy, left both the attackers and defenders ready to begin new peace negotiations within hours. The gates of the city were swung open, and as the party of defending Tau walked out for the first time in years, a party from the encamped Plains Tau also approached. These mysterious strangers initiated the first talks between these sides in years, and as they spoke, they would highlight the positive traits of both sides, and that if they could only consider uniting their strengths together, they could, instead of slowly weakening one another, achieve a form of collective forward progression that would be a greater good for all. This description obviously skims what must have been a more powerful event than just such simple words. The two figures had a certain power over the other Tau around them, and as they spoke to their philosophy extensively beneath a pure white moon that illuminated the figures as they talked long into the night, and as the sun broke over the horizon the next day, a previously unthinkable situation had been achieved. A truce had been drawn between the two warring sides. These previously unseen Tau are now referred to as the First Ethereals. This singular instance was just the beginning though. More Ethereals would appear after the success of Fiotan and collectively reach out to spread their message of peace and for the struggle to achieve a greater good for all Tau. Where previously only bitter battles and skirmishing warfare had existed, now would come peace and a new sense of uplifting inspiration by the philosophy of the Ethereals. The fast spread and uptake.
Sorry, I think it's actually really interesting how they try and join up with other members of not only their species but other species. I know Pisario is playing Final Fantasy. Thank you. I feel great about that. I hope Pisario is having the best time. But I think it's really interesting how they do that, and I think it'd be really interesting if one day they made an alliance with a really well-known group, and just to see what the reaction would be on the Imperium. It'd be an upset. It would 100% be an upset.
The ethereal outlook was prophetic.
But who do you think would be the worst person to join them to have a negative effect on people?
It would only take 1 year in the Tau calendar for it to unite all Tau across their homeworld, and it would drive them toward a strengthened sense of unity and a progressively positive outlook, the likes of which had never been seen before. Construction, communication, commerce would be some of the very early benefits as the Tau sought to bring all their individual caste skills to the collective betterment of all. The Plains Warrior Tau were the most difficult to ultimately convince that this was the right path forward, but upon seeing the positive constructive nature that was being achieved by all the other Tau, this was enough to convince them that this new philosophy was the way forward for them, and they would join the new Tau Empire in its collective quest for the greater good.
I must say, I'm actually more of a fan of Warhammer than Final Fantasy. However, it's okay for you to be wrong, Pisario. I love you.
The newly reformed race of Tau was now comprised of 5 castes: the Earth caste of builders and artisans, the Water caste of traders and merchants, the Air caste of scouts and communication experts, and the Fire caste, those warriors of the plains. The 5th caste are of course the Ethereals, the unifying force in the Tau civilization, and they are in this sense the superior individuals, the elites. They are the 5th elements in the Tau caste, because they are the unifiers.
Drink every time they say the greater good and you'll be dead by the end of the episode. I think if you learn anything about the Tau, it's that you'd be dead if you tried to drink on greater good.
Unfortunately, while this all sounds very positive and progressive for the Tau, there are, it seems, more sinister and speculative elements to the Ethereals. Many theories...
I didn't say wow. Listen. I said Warhammer. Listen to me, Pisario. Don't put words in my mouth. I said Warhammer. Get rid of it, Alpaca. I gave you permission to get rid of all those things. I made you an editor.
Whirl as to their origin, one being that the Eldar have genetically influenced them so as to have a role in the direction of the general Tau populace and get them moving in a forward direction, so as to have another force that would assist in dealing with the many threats of the galaxy, including the Imperium, Orcs, Chaos, and so on. There is though
I would like to state for the record, Alpaca, I don't know how to add emotes, so it definitely isn't me.
little direct evidence of this. The possibility of the Eldar having seen potentially some early race and then taking the initiative to spark their forward evolution is quite a delicious theory when you consider that the end goals of this could be for the Eldar to try and ensure that if they don't survive the horrors that are consuming the galaxy, there remains another force to contend with.
But sorry, I think Dan's just offered you out for a fight. I know what you said, I'm just being a troll! Listen! I was like concerned that I said that you gaslit me. You gaslit me hard. I'm just here trying to learn about Warhammer from Luton because he knows all about living towers. I'm being gaslit.
And more importantly, a force that do not make the same mistakes that they themselves have. A society focused around a cooperative, shared goal instead of individualized, selfish desires which near totally destroyed the Eldar race. Secondly, to create a species who have near to no presence in the warp, and are as such considerably more resistant to the dangers of the Chaos Gods and the warp itself, something which has already ruined the Eldar multiple times over, as they themselves were seeded and guided by the Old Ones with the goal of deliberately forging a race of powerful psychers. All of this, though, highly speculative and based on very few fragments of interpretation, so it's anybody's guess as to their true origin, and perhaps it is ultimately, as is usually the case, all the more a banal explanation. Perhaps one day we'll know the truth. The more disturbing aspect of Tau society, though, has revealed itself over time, and is far from being a theory. It's surely clear now for all to see, no matter how unpalatable the truth may be to Tau loyalists. There is plenty of evidence as to the issue of the ethereals, that they have not so simply presented a positive and unifying philosophy.
This is the ethereals, you mentioned these, Dan.
But all Tau then miraculously decide of their own will to abide by. And the more you consider that, the more it makes so little logical sense as to be dismissed with or without evidence. We hear this tale of how this fifth Tau caste appears out of nowhere, and only with a few words ends savage conflicts that showed only bitterness and no signs of ending. And then overnight they all lay down their arms and decide they're all friends again, and now it's time to work together. Please. Only the most naive could believe such a tale. Interrogations and autopsies by the Imperium, as well as documented accounts, have with solid reasoning that without the presence of an ethereal, the Tau are more than likely to revert to a state of self-determination and directly abandon the philosophy of the greater good. This runs in complete contradiction to the official Tau line that all Tau understand by its very nature that the greater good is what they must and will willingly dedicate.
So they're saying that the ethereals are the only reason that they all work together, otherwise the communism would collapse. Am I correct, Dan? Do correct me.
Their whole lives to, as there is no other logical choice to make. The fact that this is demonstrably untrue suggests a very uncomfortable truth, that if suggested, any Tau would immediately and strongly dismiss, and a reasoning that ethereals have no explanation for, and become suspiciously silent over if pressed to answer. The truth that the ethereals are essentially a coordinating class, and it is they who enable the Tau to function as a unified collective.
I actually don't know much about Warhammer Fantasy. I've played some of the games, but I don't know much about the lore. But who's Gotrek? But he could solo the Primarchs 1-on-1, maybe 3-on-1? Fuck. Which 3 Primarchs though? Like, are you including any of the hench ones? Isn't the lore all made up? Everything's made up, Asaria. Name one thing that is not made up in this world.
I'd be sure, much to the Tau's horror, that if they took the time to really consider this, they in actuality operate not so unlike the Tyranids with their hive mind, and how this is achieved by the ethereals is unknown. Imperial...
What if I am all made up? I could be a character. Yeah, I could be made up. Everyone could be made up. How do I know you're not made up, Asaria? You told me a lot about yourself. What if it's all made up? How do I know? How do I know?
Biologists have suggested that the diamond-shaped organ in the centre of their foreheads plays some role, but results as to its purpose have yielded inconclusive results. Other theories speculate that the ethereals control the lower-ranked Tau with some biological chemical means exuding like a pheromone, or even some low-level latent psychic ability, except that the Tau, as far as we know, have no real psychers in their own race. Now, whether this collective control is a more passive influence, leading the lower caste to simply be more open to suggestion, or if it is in fact a far more aggressive and enslaving sense of control, is open to discussion. I lean more towards the sense that it lies somewhere between this direct control and passive suggestion. suggestion that perhaps some Tau are more easily influenced than others. It's also possible that for many Tau this guidance is only partly necessary. The strength of an ideology can be very persuasive, and maybe the ethereals are only needed to keep your average
By ideology, do they mean cult?
Tau in check. There's no disputing though that those who exist within the Tau Empire are living a lie, whether they know it or not, and this is evidenced by the fact that Tau who are cut off from their ethereals seem to revert to a pre-greater good sense of individuality.
Yeah, I've kind of got the vibe of that, that it all comes down to the ethereals controlling people. So it's more like slavery than communism, which is, you know, sometimes a byproduct of communism.
Which, if the Tau's ideology is to be believed and taken as they themselves describe it, seems extremely unlikely. If you were absolutely convinced and indoctrinated into your society's ideology and philosophies, why would you then so abruptly abandon this at the first opportunity?
Hi, bye! I've played a lot of Warhammer games. I'll have you know, I have played Darktide, I have played Vermintide, I have played Space Marine, I have played other games. So I've played a lot of the Warhammer games. Alright? Just gonna put that out there. Played a lot of them. Boom. But for today, I'm learning about the Tau. You remember this, Vi? This is from my YouTube. You visited once or twice.
And more specifically doing so when ethereals are absent. It clearly points towards ethereals having a far more proactive and sustained process of mental control over the lower Tau castes. And you can also look at how some allied races within the Tau Empire, such as the Vespid, will wear communion helms that are in air quotes for communication, read, in actuality, necessary ongoing mental manipulation and control. The conclusion to take away is that the Tau are in actuality far from being an advanced and civilized race.
Why is everyone in a trolling mode today? I love it, but why? Pisaria's come in troll, like, even Fruit came in. Well, Fruit always comes in trolling. Vi's now trolling. Like, where's this trolling attitude come from? Do tell. What is in the water today?
Is simply their propaganda. They are not unified by a philosophy or logical ideology that all conveniently agree to live by without question for the positive betterment of others.
Hi Jake, welcome in!
They are instead quite tragically more like an enslaved race of minions, similar even to the Tyranids or the Necron. They exist tethered to the ethereals by a force ultimately unknown, and who without their presence would likely resort to smashing each other's skulls in just as they had done in the past, or at the very least just going off and doing their own things. Near all the Tau's achievements and the speed of these have been thanks to their collective cooperation, and it's likely that without the ethereals the Tau would face obliteration by the Imperium and the other arguably more vicious Xenos inhabiting the galaxy. In many ways, bearing this in mind, you may consider to yourself, well, this is surely a good thing. The ethereals enabling the Tau to collectively achieve what they could not on their own and allow them to function and come together as a constructive force. And as with so many events that occur in the bleak darkness of the far future, it is in fact more often the apparently positive events which can on further reflection reveal a far darker narrative once you begin to scratch away the surface.
It's great to see you too, Jake! You've played other games? I've played at least one other. Didn't I? I'm sure I played one with you that I haven't named. Yeah? I did. I played a lot of Warhammer games, okay? And Vi, it was not a genuine question. Don't you lie to me, woman. I've got all the ladies bullying me on Twitch, and I've got all the gents watching and vibing out on YouTube.
The Tau in that regard are no exception. Constructive achievements, yes, but paying a high price of mental enslavement, never being their true selves? How aware are they of this fact, and how aware are the ethereals? It's very difficult to say, but the Tau though for sure are able to think for themselves, formulate decisions, intent, invent, but it's the way in which they're unified that is an uncomfortable reality. I've seen many state that the Tau are the closest thing that exists to having a race led by a positive constructive hope in the 41st millennium, and in truth this only works if you ignore and dismiss the fact that the Tau are in all likelihood operating as a society of brainwashed slaves. And while it's true that their goals and diplomatic interactions are far more subtle and arguably positive than that of the alternatives, I find myself asking what's worse, being forced into a course of action without the ability to have your own free will, albeit debatably and comparatively positive, or choosing with your own individual and intact sense of self to adhere to your society's chosen system, or to abandon it and suffer the consequences, but at least making your own decision and knowing your sense of self. I still would argue that when you look around the galaxy, two races who represent the true, purest sense of purpose are the Orcs and the Tyranids. Yes, both are unspeakable alien killing machines that salivate at the mere prospect of killing in the name of, but does it make them ostensibly bad?
Killing in the name of... Sorry.
Evil even? I think not. Because they're just doing what they do. They're doing what they're designed to do, and the Orcs are loving it. To be clear, the Tau themselves are not a bad race, depending on your point of view, of course, but they
Yes, Dawn of War! I have played Dawn of War!
do have a bleak life once you begin to speculate a little around how the Ethereals control the Tau. They were forcibly indoctrinated into it. Do they have a subconscious understanding that all of this is happening without their real consent? Do they dream of freedom and self-determination, only to awake to another day of reality and mental enslavement? If it weren't for the Ethereals forcibly pushing the Tau toward their goals of total unification, they would, as we said, still be camped out around each other's settlements, happy to watch each other die.
Wait, so don't the Tyranids have a... they have a species that, like, brings you as part of the collective. Am I wrong? There is a species of them that, like... Gene Stealers! Is it Gene Stealers? Gene Stealers do essentially what they're saying happens here. Am I wrong? Am I misinterpreting this?
Of starvation, disease, and complete emotional and societal breakdown. A race of forward-thinking, progressive, generally peaceful Xenos who only use violence when they must? If that's how you see the Tau, then maybe the Ethereal's mind control has started to pierce your consciousness as well. It's easy and certainly appealing as to why some would want to see the Tau as being a positive, uplifting, and alternative force to the unashamed horror and brutality that pervades the rest of the galaxy. Yet when it comes to the devolved, the vicious, or the pretentious entities that qualify as civilizations in the rest of the galaxy, you could at least say that their crusades, their wars, battles, and genocides were honest, that they owned their intentions, allowed others to witness them, and knew both the strength of their words and their actions, for better or worse. The reason the Tau, to me, are so abhorrent despite their more progressive veneer is that in truth they're neither. They live a lie, and worse, allowed themselves to be manipulated into a lie that they're likely not even aware of, and it can
So you also think they could take on Primarchs? Who is Gotrek? I'm going to need more details of this Gotrek fella.
surely only be a matter of time for an event befitting the darkness of the far future to occur, where it must surely come to pass that the Tau, through some catastrophic slaughter of Ethereals, perhaps some highly focused campaign of assassination by the Imperium, hint, that subsequently throw the Tau once again back into total anarchy and...
Excuse you what? Excuse you what? He could kill Lion, Horus, and Sanguinius one-on-one, and the others three-on-one. Are you saying he could take Fulgrim with two others? No way! My Snake Prince could well take him one-on-one. Hi, Adam! Love you! Have fun in the restaurant!
civil war, leaving them ripe for the plucking. This seems to be not simply a plausible possibility, but knowing how events so regularly befall those in the 41st millennium, this crushing downfall based on their precarious structure of fallacy.
Who's Croak? Why does he make Magnus look like a bitch? And why doesn't it work? Gotrek is a dwarf, sworn to die in battle. He sucks at it, but he keeps killing everything. That's so funny. Wait, I think I've heard about him. The one who was constantly chasing death. You know what, I need to start reading some of these books. Remember guys, you said you'd give me book recommendations in the comments, and I haven't had enough recommendations. That sounds really cool. A dwarf slayer, sworn to die in battle, but he keeps killing everyone. That's hilarious. The Bible?
Seems an inevitability. The Tau, a force for good, they're the worst of them all, and their day of ruination will come.
That's so funny. Cake and cookies? Gimme. Sorry, if you're wondering why I'm typing in the chat, it's because Adam's at dinner, so he can't hear me.
Still, despite the dystopian nightmare that is Tau society, and that they are likely all pawns at the beck and call to so many ethereals, it is still true that the overarching principles of the greater good are more appealing than some other races. If you happened upon some Tau yourself and were generally behaving peacefully, they are, for example, unlikely to want to skin you alive, as might the Dark Eldar, and then parade your skin suit around for the entertainment of others.
Wait, who are the lizard men? I feel like I'm missing so much. Who are the lizard men? Power scaling doesn't match? Ah, okay, fair point.
Nor would they want to dissolve you whilst you're still conscious from the inside out, as giant teeth-bearing maggots infest every space in your body, as might the Tyranids, or subject you to months of endless torture and dogmatic interrogation to reveal irrelevant facts for the purposes of dusty administrative record-keeping, as would the Imperium. So while we may deliberately drown ourselves in the bleak horror of the future, you cannot say that it is not the case that, comparatively speaking, the Tau are the lesser of so many evils. It simply depends on if you're an individual who prefers to deal with reality in a
Can I just say, an exercise in futility is one of my favourite phrases.
hard and unvarnished sense, or live in the blissful ignorance of the societal, mind-controlling nightmare you're facing. The greater good teaches, for lack of a better verb, that all sentient beings play an equal and important role in Tau society, that trivial conflicts only disrupt the progress toward a united
It was called Hero Hammer? What?
Tau and fulfilling the greater good. The Tau, unlike other races, have no desires to break down, destroy, purge, or otherwise exterminate others' culture. They perceive those who choose to resist their enlightened philosophy with more along the lines of confusion than contempt, baffled to come to an understanding of how these individuals are unable to see the truth of the greater good, which again tells you, without direct evidence, further suggestion that they are a brainwashed cult who can't see outside their own space. To this end, the Tau will generally attempt some form of diplomacy instead of operating a kill-on-sight code of conduct, as is often the case for most other races. And as
I need more details about Hero Hammer. 100%.
the Tau themselves discovered when first encountering humanity, after their failure to respond, the Imperium simply obliterated them with no questions asked. However, the Tau are not zombies and have come thankfully quickly to understanding that for some races attempts at diplomacy are just futile. And so when dealing with the races that we know to be inherently unrelentingly aggressive, like the Orcs, Tyranids, and to a degree Chaos, they've come to understand painfully that these races are never going to be interested in their strangers just a friend you haven't met philosophy. That being ready for combat when encountering these forces is likely the more prudent course of action, and these races have been basically blacklisted by the Tau, and they no longer want to try and convince them to join their special greater good club.
But they were still trying to convince the Orcs at some point. I know that. I know they tried to convince the Orcs.
Thank you very much. The Tau also seek to expand their empire in what are known as the spheres of expansion. These are basically periods of great expansion whereby they will to a degree conquer and absorb the worlds they want to expand outward to. And while the Tau themselves and some of their allies certainly fall under the willful suggestion of the ethereals, it's questionable as to how other races will behave in this way. It's difficult to know how effective the concept of the greater good will be in uniting an empire that relies in part on a citizenry who are mentally guided by their senior caste. If other races the Tau Empire absorb are less receptive to the suggestion of the ethereals, it could spell a small or even a significant level of disruption for the Tau within their harmonious order. The Tau Empire consists of the 5 castes, as previously mentioned, and the castes themselves do not vie for any kind of ranked order, because all their roles, be it a worker, warrior, are seen as equally important to the overall goals of the Tau. Within each caste they do have a ranking system woven into their naming conventions, La being a lower ranking caste member and O being a higher rank. Each caste uses the 5 universal ranks, but then have specific designations relevant to their roles in each caste. For example, in the fire caste from lowest to highest, you have warrior, veteran, hero, knight, and then commander. The fire caste is likely the most well known to those outside the Tau Empire. This is the military and warrior caste. And while often a little shorter in height than an average human and with a muscular build, but still generally physically weaker than...
That sounds exactly like what people would do. Yeah, 100%. Sounds right. Based.
Your average human. Tau generally like to come up with careful plans than rush in with bloodthirsting emotion. They also prefer to hit and run rather than dig in for a battle of attrition. So often their warfare is about drawing out an enemy or making a tactical retreat to gain an upper hand and secure an overall victory. The Earthcast is not singularly about construction and infrastructure, it's more comprehensive and contains engineers, scientists, labourers and technicians. The Earthcast are the builders of Tau's cities, but also those involved in the research and development of some of their most powerful technological leaps forward. And while containing your average hard labourer, they'll also have artisans who embellish and drive the visual culture of the Tau forward. The Earthcast ranks lowest to highest are Worker, Senior, Overseer, Engineer and Planner. The Watercast concerns are with trade and diplomacy. They seek to ensure smooth communication and diplomacy both with existing and potentially new allies for the Empire. Watercast often embody the very nature of the ethereal art of suggestion, and on more than one occasion Watercast have been attributed with turning non-Tau worlds toward the path of the greater good without a shot ever having been fired. The Watercast ranks again lowest to highest are Bureaucrat, Envoy, Magister, Diplomat and Ambassador. The Aircast are so...
It's so wild to me. It was very my dad can't be of your dad vibe. That's so funny. I don't know how Warhammer hasn't lost track of its own lore. Like, how have the people who've gone through all of this not lost track of it? How have all of you watching on YouTube not lost track of this? Please put in the comments how you've managed to maintain this timeline and all these facts, because it is impressive.
In more than just name. They function as the naval force for the Tau in both space itself and planetary dropship operations. The Aircast, though perhaps unintentionally, live up to their title in that many of them bear disturbing physical traits from extended operation in zero gravity, in the form of them having hollowed bones, and this means that they'll often refuse to step foot on a planet proper because heavy gravity environments can lead them to suffer broken bones very easily. Often considered better pilots than the Imperium can supply due to their more responsive and advanced fighter craft, but the Tau also lack the grizzled combat experience of the Imperial Navy. The Aircast's ranks lowest to highest are Messenger, Carrier, Pilot, Captain and Admiral. Lastly, of course, are the Ethereals. As discussed already, the real leadership of the Tau Empire and the guardians of the religio-political teachings of the Tau Va. Rarely are they significantly present on a battlefield, but their presence, even if not visible...
Well, I thought they were capped on how many they could have. Have they been breaking this? Should we call Gilliman? The girly man himself. Thank you, Stan. I'm glad that, other people are also admitting.
Visible is usually assumed. The Ethereal cast ranks lowest to highest are Prince, Prelate, King, Holy and Ethereal. The Tau, unlike most other races in the galaxy, shy away from physical, bloody combat. There are a few Tau who you find punching an orc's face to pieces, or ripping through Imperial armour like it were paper, nor opting for a session of headbutting each other for a bit of a laugh to see who falls into unconsciousness first. Now for the Tau, when it comes to military...
Oh, their physical size? They've literally, messed up the size of them? That's wild. Hi, Zozo! How we doing? You all listening? You're safe? I'm glad. I'm glad. They've literally messed up the size of, I'm going to need more information. How have they messed up the size of the Space Marines?
Military engagements, they enjoy two things most readily: fighting at a distance and careful planning. Tau also prefer to get the fighting over and done with as quickly as possible, and seemingly lack the stomach for long, drawn-out battles of attrition. The Tau way is one of laying down a powerful strike to crush the enemy as quickly as possible, laying traps and using external factors to their tactical advantage, and to that end, they'll often prefer to abandon an existing outpost if they're outnumbered, regroup, plan and employ an appropriate stratagem to crush the invaders.
I'm glad that you also lose track, Dan. That's why a lot of us focus on one main faction, and I've just gotten all in. I'm like, I'm going to become a Warhammer expert. I'm going to know everything about everyone. I'm going to do everything about everything. Guess I'll become a general practitioner of Warhammer. I've missed you, Zozo, and I'm glad that you're doing good, and I'm doing fine, thank you.
In some ways, this holds a lot of sense to it. The Imperium, while fiercely loyal and always a fan of dying to the last man because the Emperor will judge you, while somewhat romantic, it's not especially practical, always. The Tau approach tends to lean towards a logical reasoning, disconnected.
Oh look, it's the faced fish flappers. I'll get my bolter. Liam, what an entrance. Welcome in. Welcome.
from the emotion of sacrificial loyalty. On the other hand, sometimes the only way to win an ongoing vicious campaign of slaughter in the 41st millennium is by digging in and refusing to surrender no matter the cost, and something the Imperium of Man, Eldar, and just about all other races have learned over the millennia. The Tau, while logical, seem to lack the real stomach for the grim realities that they face. Realities like alien horrors who have no concept of retreat, or fanatical superhuman warriors who will gladly exterminate every trace of you by any means and any cost necessary if required to do so. There are individual exceptions, of course, and the Tau, moreover, have found convenient ways to get around the fact that they prefer not to get their hands dirty when it comes to meat-grinding battlefield slaughters that are all too common in the dark future. Why fight a battle when you can have your minions do it for you?
I'm glad to be back. Thank you, Liam. And tell Danny I said hi.
The Tau will often use the Kroot as their melee-based infantry. Now, the Kroot are a far more warlike race than the Tau themselves, and they're not only found in the eastern fringe region where the Tau originate, but they are concentrated here. The Kroot are deceptive in that they appear feral and savage, but are actually capable of sniping specific high-value targets from enemy units or others such as communication units and so on. They then will emerge from cover to smash the uncoordinated remnants of their targets, and this is where they would diverge from the Tau, as the ensuing close-quarter combat is truly savage.
So are these like a type of Tau or not? Are these a type of Tau?
Instinctive and animalistic, and the Kroot are more than happy to take a pause mid-battle and bite chunks out of fallen enemy for a bit of fast energy on the go. And whilst these displays are distasteful for Tau warriors, it's tolerated as the Tau are very aware of the critical role the Kroot play for them and will turn a blind eye to such matters. The numbers of Kroot and their passion for battle make them an invaluable ally for the Tau, yet they operate far more in mercenary attitude than
Okay, so yeah, I get it now. So they're like allies, not part of it. See, the Tau are still very young. I think they are underutilized. I think they could become a much more interesting species. Yeah, no, I figured it out. I was like being a bit dumb, but yeah, I think they could. The Tau themselves could be a much more interesting species. There's just not enough been done with them yet.
Adhering to the true teachings of the Tau Va. The Tau will generally speaking use fairly simplistic and age-old battle tactics of using their firecast units to soften up an enemy at range before allowing their Kroot supporting fighters to jump in and take the brunt of the dirty fighting. Kroot carnivore squads utilizing Kroot hounds play a powerful, albeit unpleasant role here in their ability to track enemy before engaging in brutal savagery. The Kroot have even trained their hounds to rip at the weak points of known enemy, the joints of Space Marine power armor, for example. And these squads can also be seen to use Krootox, a large creature who can serve as a mobile weapon platform. And it's believed that Kroot eat their prey not simply for sustenance, but they can also begin to over time adopt traits of their target, increased muscle mass for example, or enhanced sensory abilities. They can also begin to display traits from their victims' culture, so they might exhibit not only physical but social tendencies as well. While this may lend similarities to Tyranids, there's no suggestion of any relation to the same process.
I was told that I can't do the Farsight Enclaves because Dan wasn't going to be here. And then it turned out that Dan was going to be here, but Dan gave me no warning. Just going to put that out there. Dan did not give me warning on that. However, I believe what we're listening to after this is, bear with me while I get my lovely little notepad up, is the Farsight Enclaves. He didn't give me warning, but I saw him, so I updated it. So that is the next one. You're welcome.
In fact, it would be likely very dangerous for Kroot to ingest Tyranid flesh, because who knows what invasive DNA they could unwittingly bring into themselves, and furthermore open themselves up to developing tyrannic sympathies or higher receptiveness to follow the commands of the hive mind should it ever enter the system. One would hope that the Kroot would be aware of these inherent dangers. Because of their comparatively weak physique, coupled with the fact that the Tau just generally prefer to fight at a distance, they have to that end developed a range of weapons and force multiplying platforms that enable the Tau to play to their personal preferences. This means careful planning and tactical analysis. The Tau preference is rarely one of emotional reaction or aggression, but assessing the best possible outcome. And this is another admirable trait for the Tau, and again a relatively unusual one in the darkened galaxy of the future. To be able to make such objective planning, the Tau will even abandon a base if it comes under attack, dismantle important apparatus, and then return later when they have a higher chance of successfully retaking the position. The Tau also will use two primary tactics known as Killing Blow and Patient Hunter. As the names describe, these are a highly focused directed attack to knock out high-value targets in a strike effort, and the second more of an ambush when an enemy will be lured from a position of strength into a weaker kill zone before being destroyed. Unlike many forces in the galaxy, because the Tau do not combine their ranged and melee combat as commonly as other races, their tactics and battle organization also differ to allow for these roles to be appropriately engaged. And this means they're seen to deploy in formations that are ancient to human history, where the Tau with their rifles will form a front rank of ranged power to soften up targets, while the Kroot melee will wait behind, ready to leap forward as and when the enemy have closed the gap enough. This will...
Can I just say, hi Jezebel, how are you doing? I miss you. Hello. And is that a Jezzy emote I see? Excuse me? There are now Jezebel emotes. Do you want to explain this to me? Because that's real cute and I don't have it, which means I don't have a founder's badge. Which I'm not going to say anything about, except for, where is it? How long has this been going on? How long? How long? Do you want to explain yourself? I have snowstorm blowing through. It's freezing. Waiting for power to be restored to me. Okay, but at least I'm doing the Farsight for you, so you'll get to see Farsight. Don't worry. Oh, no worries, Jake. Thank you for coming in. I will see you soon. Jezebel, we're listening to some Warhammer lore. Feel free to join us. Otherwise, horror on Monday. See you then.
Enable the Tau warriors to retreat, take up a new position, ready to engage again at a safe distance. And you can likely imagine what Imperial soldiers might think of such tactics. The Tau possess a variety of infantry-based ranged weapons, but it's worth simply mentioning primarily the base pulse rifle. This is essentially the Tau lasgun, and unfortunately for the Imperium, it beats mankind's offering on both power and range, giving the Tau warrior the ability to fire extensive repeating rounds. The pulse rifle uses powerful electromagnets to fire a subatomic particle, which then breaks down, creating a plasma pulse upon leaving the weapon. Now, as the Tau utilize electromagnetic weaponry, they also have access to railguns, which are projectile-based and fire rounds as you would expect at an extremely high velocity, the result being, as you might expect, dealing considerable damage to the target. The Tau also somewhat exclusively lean heavily towards using battle suits for their warriors to fight in. Similarly to a Grey Knight's Dread Knight, Tau battle suits are powerful combat exoskeletons, and unlike most other forces that use some kind of exoskeleton warframes as a highly specialized powerful support unit, the Tau use them far more commonly. For the Tau, they make up an important part of the general Firecast forces. And additionally, the Tau have been continually making significant leaps forward in the advancement of their technology, and the battlesuit is one of their highest achievements so far. Battlesuits are more than just powerful tools, they are devastating force multipliers assigned to only the most skilled Tau warriors, and enable a Tau force to lay down suffocating levels of fire or highly focused specific power to punch through heavy high-value targets. Combining their railgun tech with smart missile systems, the battlesuits smother enemies with withering levels of fire. Their missile systems being particularly feared, as cover will not protect. The missiles fire and are drone guided, and as such will find a trajectory to their target regardless of cover. Tau battlesuits are formed of a lightweight yet extremely strong nanocrystalline alloy. The suit's angles are formed much like armoured tanks of the 20th century, in that their design shapes are hoped to allow solid projectiles to safely deflect off the suit. The alloy is then coated with a liquid metal finish to help reflect varying degrees of laser fire. Despite their specifically different tactics, the Tau are a relatively flexible force, combining both firepower and flexibility, making use of their advanced weaponry and playing to its strengths in logical fashion. They make use of allies to fill in for their own shortcomings and make use of simple AI drones to either engage or assist in protecting troops. As with most races, they also sport heavy vehicle weaponry that can deal devastating levels of firepower, and the key difference with the Tau is that their forces are far more specialized than other races. While the Imperium, for example, has specialists, they're usually also capable of taking on multi-roles as necessary. The same to an extent for other races, give or take. The Tau, though, as with their society, take on a specific role, and that is the limit of their role. In some regards, this can be a positive to have highly specialized forces who know their role specifically and know that role well, but the obvious downside is that once you've lost a specific unit in your battle force, it can undermine your capabilities and your tactics. And this, though, is where the battle suits come in, as they're highly mobile and able to fill in any gaps across a battlefield, as well as react quickly to changing situations that could place vulnerable units at risk. Now, the Tau Empire would go through multiple expansions in its history, but we begin at the second expansion of the Tau Empire, which was launched with the New Horizon Accelerator engine, allowing the Tau to achieve longer space travel than ever before. The Tau were also now reinforced with their Kroot allies, and a Tau known as Commander Puretide would, through this expansion, achieve legendary notoriety, crushing an Orc invasion, where through his calculating tactics and...
Wait, what's Warframe? Sorry, Liam, I didn't see your message. So what is Warframe, and is it good?
Tau principles of long-range engagement somehow made the prospect of battle unenjoyable, even for orcs. Puretide was not simply a warrior and commander either. He had mastered all aspects of combat and military tactics, and would bring new ideas for Tau warriors to learn from and take a more balanced and flexible attitude to battle. Puretide would tutor promising prodigies of the Firecast, and many of his aspirants would go on to carve their names and achievements into Tau history themselves. Yet this training would also instill a bitter rivalry between his aspirants, who all wanted his attention and approval, yet still they would share a close bond and respect. Now, some of those most notable aspirants were Shasera, Caius, and joining them, Shovar. Now, they had all previously demonstrated strong skill both in battle and strategy, and now they were here to learn directly from the master. Each had individual styles to warfare and relevant philosophical thinking to pair with their approach to military engagements. As their training reached completion, each would leave taking their new
I will check that out, Liam. That sounds fun as fuck. I think I've heard about that.
names and leave to fight as Tau commanders across war zones throughout the Tau Empire. Commander Puretide, though, would suffer serious wounding during the destructive Damocles War with the Imperium, unsure as to if they would be able to maintain his experience.
I'm so sorry. I hadn't expected that. Thank you for dropping the base on this place.
In memory devices, that is Tau mind-captured devices used to preserve the former commander's experience so that it would be accessible by later Tau commanders, and this would be known as the Puretide Engram neurochip. The Ethereals wanted to scan his mind to retain its high value to the Empire. Now, these Engram chips would be installed in the minds of Fireblades and Battlesuit commanders, enabling them to function with a common understanding of Puretide's experience and adapt to any tactical situation. The unforeseen downside to this was that those who had been implanted with the chip were unable then to draw from their existing own personal experience, and so consequently would suffer losses as a result of being unable to adapt to situations that they may have actually had their own experiences with. But this situation also further evidences to the Ethereals having the imagination and the willpower to use mind control devices against lower Tau castes. Later they...
I think we know enough about the Tau now. I've been listening, I've been vibing. Yo, Nate! Welcome in. Adam, welcome home. I hope you are doing phenomenally. Being an affiliate is overrated, Kappa. I only like it for the badges. I have a lot of badges and a lot of emotes, and that's why I like being an affiliate. But yes, I think we've learned a lot about the Tau from this video. However, I think it is time. Let me turn that off for a moment.
Smoke weed every day.
delay, but great timing on that, honestly. For those who don't know, I am on... My YouTube one is going to be deleted. I am going to have to be copyrighted. I'm going to get copyrighted. Stop it! I'm going to have to mute like the last 3 minutes. It's reaction content and we're about to listen to a story about the Tau. So I am going to ask that none of you get me in trouble with YouTube, because I'm currently live on YouTube right now. Whilst we listen to this fun story about the Tau, we're listening to a book, we're listening to a story. I'm going to give you 1 second to get that out, because I know that's exactly... Sorry, I know you're about to do one, so get it done. Get it done. Get it done. I can just turn off sound alerts. No? You're not going to do it? You already told me you're trolling today. Sip indeed, Jezebel! Sip! Right. You're done? You're done. Okay. For the protection of the rest of this, I have turned sound alerts off just for the end of this, just because this is a very good story and I don't want it to have to be muted. Hi Q! How we doing? How we doing? Welcome in to my Warhammer stream from YouTube, but you're obviously on the Twitch side of things. It's so weird doing this stream on Twitch and YouTube. I would love some. I thought you already were. That's fine. That's fine. Okay. Okay. Fair point. You make a good point. You make a good point. You got me. That's fine. There's 55 warframes now, not including primes. That's wild. Even when I say free, I mean it. Everything in game that isn't cosmetic can be farmed and built for absolutely no money. There's a playing currency for real money, but players can trade it between themselves. Oh, that's pretty cool, actually. It is cool. I'll look at that. How is the day going? Don't make me turn those off, please. 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 We're going to be read a story. It's about the Tau, which we're learning about today. And the day is going well, Q. The day is... Alright, let's do this. You want me a sponsor segment? What am I sponsored by? You haven't told me what I'm sponsored by! Oh, are we laughing? Fuck, I missed an are we laughing. I'm so sorry. Ha! Oh, please. Please, please, please. I'm gonna lose my mind. Y'all are trolling me today! I spread my time and I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna bring Warhammer to Twitch because these guys have not seen me as much and they'd all be so happy to see me. Remember that? Remember when I was like, yo, I'm gonna bring this all here so y'all can see me. And you ruined it. Y'all ruined it. Y'all ruined it. Y'all ruined it. Oh, I already did it. Mod's trying to mod now. You got to. I'm glad to hear you're good. Anyway, I'm going to do a fake sponsor segment, so bear with me 1 second. I've already turned them off. I gave chat too much power. I was like, yo, you know what? Miss my guys. Gonna give them some power. Gonna do some Warhammer on this side of things, and they've just trolled me throughout this entire thing. I'm still gonna do it next week. Hi everyone. My name is Hallie, and I am fake sponsored by Coke. Do you need something to wake you up in the morning? Do you need something to put you to sleep at night? Do you need something that will replace all of the water and hydration in your life? Then you need Coke. I don't know what's real anymore, but I know there's Coke. Hi, Ted! I would hope mods are trying to mod. I did not mute my microphone. I didn't. I definitely didn't. Did I? Not again. Alright, I'm just gonna play the story. I'm gonna play the story.
Little person who should subscribe to my channel, hope that was subtle enough for you. You would have noticed that I said the Farsight Enclaves are pretty much the good things about Halo sucked out of it with a vacuum cleaner. So let's discuss Warhammer's only lawful good faction for a bit, shall we? But first, hey you. Yeah, I know you can see me. You know how often I show my face on this channel? It's been once in a video so far.
Here we go.
Let's get on with the show. The Farsight Enclaves have their origins during the Damocles Crusade, but their founder, Commander Farsight, goes back further. He's one of those people that seem destined for greatness from the start, though often to his detriment. Showing up your instructors, for instance, is a great way to make yourself A, stand out, and B, send your career on a fast track to a dead end. Though, luckily for him, he was simply too good to shove in some desk job, so he was eventually promoted to being a battlesuit pilot? Would you call the person inside one a pilot, or do they more wear it? Oh well, semantics aside, he's always been good at what he does, though perhaps too inclined to engage in melee for the rest of the Tau commanders to be comfortable with. All this being said, he existed at the same time as one Commander Puretide. Commander Puretide was basically Tau's Sun Tzu, and every battlefield he went to was pretty much a guaranteed Tau victory. So great was his strategic genius that even to this day, Tau military commanders basically just try to copy whatever he might have done in a situation, and in fact most of them could only manage to grasp a part of his teachings. He had
Yes, Dan, you heard me.
many pupils, the greatest of whom were Commander Shadowsun, aka Tau Fanart the character, another Tau named Shazo Kais, who funnily enough is the same guy from Fire Warrior and Dawn of War, so I already know he kicks ass, and none other than Commander Farsight. These three were his best pupils, who each formed a school of combat around aspects of Puretide's teachings. The Tau even downloaded Puretide's brain onto a microchip to keep it around for the future.
Ladies, gentlemen, behave yourselves or I will come over there. I will literally show up outside of your monitor and beat you up.
This killed him, and Farsight was the one who had to do it. This is a great way to generate loyalty in your soldiers that surely will never come to bite you in the ass. Puretide even told Commander Farsight before he died to not trust them all, which translates to the Ethereals are scumbags, for the love of God, get out while you can. I might be paraphrasing a bit there, but that's close enough to what it meant in the end. After this, Farsight was given a massive fleet of Tau and told to go butcher some
Stop, don't do that!
orcs, and he did so with gusto. He realized that close quarters combat is the best way to deal with orcs, which I can't say I understand that one, given that pulse rifles probably obliterate orc spores just fine from a distance, but Farsight did win in the end, so who am I to disagree with him? He also met the only cool ethereal known as An-Shi and developed a melee battlesuit after talking to the guy for a bit. Neat. Side note that's important to mention, but I don't really know where to put it, so here it is. Shadowsun, Okais, and Farsight were all regularly cryogenically frozen to keep them, and more importantly, Puretide's teachings alive, since Tau don't live that long of lives, all things considered. Puretide's neurochip was reproduced, but putting it in someone essentially turned them into a mindless robot that could only do tactical thinking. And all of Puretide's wisdom was useless against Psykers because he somehow never encountered a mage in the fantasy setting that is this sci-fi setting. To get back to Farsight, he was then redeployed to deal with the Damocles Crusade. Deal with is really the only way I can put it, because the Tau, despite holding their own, were completely outnumbered in ways never before encountered, and at times Farsight's brilliant was pretty much the only thing keeping them winning any battles. After the crusade abruptly ended because the Tyranids decided to make a guest appearance at what was soon to become an all-you-can-devour buffet, Farsight was tasked with reclaiming some of the world's lost and expanding where he could. Instead of narrating the entire series of events, I'm gonna mostly just give you a quick rundown of the coolest shit he did in chronological order before he decided to succeed from the Tau Empire. He floated through an Imperial gun battery on a ship so he could disable its Geller field. Lucky for him it didn't fire while he was floating through the damn thing. He manages to escape said ship as it gets filled with demons, so he's also got a lucky streak to rival Kane about him too. The territories he had reclaimed for the Tau came under siege by a massive orc Wa, so obviously it was time for him to get fighting them. I say fight, it was more like mushroom genocide. There'd be a whole load of orcs near a volcano, so he'd make the damn thing erupt. If it was near the coastline, it was time for a surprise tsunami. He mostly ended this whole mess by punching through the orc war boss's command vehicle and vaporized him with a battlesuit-based Kamehameha. After this, this, the 3 ethereals that were assigned to his expeditionary force were getting sick of him not conquering Imperial worlds in favor of orc butchering, but he kept ignoring them to finish off the green stragglers. Eventually they nagged him enough, and they all ended up on a planet called Arthas Moloch, which is a name that should probably hint to you what he found on there, given that the last time someone important in Warhammer went to a planet called Moloch, all 4 Chaos Gods collectively shat a brick. Surprise! Demons show up and cause some ruckus and grievously wound Farsight. He did find a nifty looking sword though, which is something I guess. After that it was murder time, once again. He climbed into his battlesuit for what he thought would be the last time. One of the ethereals actually mentioned demons and revealed they knew all along what was going down with these weird aliens that weren't actually aliens at all, and then he went demon killing. He chucked a whole bunch of anti-chaos amulets he found into the portal that came out to make it blow up, because whoever left the sword and these medallions just lying around clearly had some organizational issues to sort out. After this, there was only one thing left to do for him: kill all the orcs left on the planet. The number of them remaining was higher than 0, you see, and this simply would not do. He went to work with his newfound sword, and to his surprise, noticed that when all was said and done, he had not only been healed of his wounds, but had regressed in age to his prime. Turns out he found a vampire sword, a pretty damn convenient thing to have in store. My guess is that it's one of the 99 swords that Vald made for Cain, because I simply will not, and indeed cannot, let anyone forget that I think the Eldar are the best for a single goddamn moment. Oh, and those 3 ethereals with him got murdered by demons. Sucks to suck, douchebags. And this is where we finally get the Farsight Enclaves proper. After all this had happened, he realized that the Tau leadership was either maliciously lying about the truths of the galaxy, ignorant, in denial, or some combination of all 3 things. Combine that with the fact that all of the ethereals who could stop or report him came down with a sudden case of death, he had the perfect chance to get the hell out of Dodge. So he took some of the planets he recaptured, as well as the forces under his command, and just kinda stopped being a part of the Tau Empire. For a while, the Tau figured that since they hadn't heard from him, everyone involved was dead. It had been over a century and a half. They assumed things went south and just chalked it up to a loss. What are you gonna do? Then an exploration probe visited the systems the Enclave supposedly perished in and found out that, wait a minute, they're doing just fine. And they changed the set markings and were ethereal free, and oh, they were pissed. Upon discovering that Farsight had pulled the old switcheroo on him, they did a 180 on their opinion of the guy. Statues of him were obliterated, and he was either removed from history.
So basically, he left the Tau and started doing his own thing, and now everyone's mad at him.
Outright, or were branded to be a cowardly traitor, depending on the specifics of the records. His old peer and rival Shadowsun even considers him as such now. I couldn't find anything on what Okais thinks of him, because presumably thinking about something like that would require not being Tau Doom Guy for more than 5 seconds. Of course, this didn't sit well with a lot of people, especially members of the Firecast who still viewed him as a hero. So a lot of them secretly supplied him with weapons and materials. Most of the Enclave's equipment is slightly out of date, but not enough to keep them too far behind the Tau Empire as a whole. As for why the Tau don't try to reconquer them, it's because in the meantime, Farsight turned the entire damn place into a fortress sturdy enough to make a dwarf grudgingly say that it's all right. Orbital stations and defense platforms litter the space around the Enclave, so while they might not have the manpower to truly go on the offensive, they also sure as hell aren't going to be invaded with what they're rocking back at home. It'd be like a burglar breaking into your house and you have a loaded cannon pointed at the doorway. As for what the Enclaves get up to in the lore, there's only so much to say on the matter. There was their founding, which if you haven't noticed is also just the history of Commander Farsight himself, and then there was the time that the Enclaves were invaded by a Tyranid splinter fleet. Farsight had by this point gone into self-imposed retirement, and when he realized things were getting as bad as they were, he just walked up to the museum his old battlesuit was held in, hopped in, grabbed his murder sword and 80 other battlesuit pilots, and went to town on the Tyranids long enough for Earthcast scientists to develop a toxin capable of ending the Tyranids for good. A side note, but if you think that's some plot armor BS, please remember that A, the Death Watch also uses toxins against the Tyranids, and B, people are allowed to do things that the Imperium can't every now and then. After this, he just...
Yeah, I remember there being some like controversy about poisoning the Tyranids, but like you said, it's been done before, and I can't see why the Tau couldn't, especially because they're more
decided
advanced.
To stick around for a while, helping to lead the Enclaves alongside the 7 new compatriots he handpicked to give themselves some assistance. They creatively called themselves the 8. Now, about the only thing I really know about the 8 is that there's as many of them as there are JoJos. And as much as I'd like to sit here screaming like a brain-addled moron about how Warhammer 40k is just a JoJo reference, I think it'd be best if I left these guys to someone who actually knows what he's talking about. So while I'm going to go watch an episode of Diamond is Unbreakable and fast forward, Josuke is the best JoJo by the way, I'll fight you on this, please allow me to introduce the one, the only Gaijin Goomba. That's right, someone who actually knows what they're talking about was willing to make an appearance on this garbage fire of a channel. I'm just as shocked as you are. Mr. Goomba, why don't you tell us about the 8 and what makes them badass?
Someone who knows what they're talking about. Bro, I come to you for Warhammer lore. But I am a giant weeb and I do love the Farsight Enclave almost as much as I love my Bad Moon orcs, so I'll do the best I can.
The Geneva Convention, amazing.
So if I was to describe the 8 in one word, it would be Sentai. No, I'm serious. Just as every single member of a Sentai team brings something unique, powerful, and sometimes just outright goofy to the group, the 8 all have such insanely different backgrounds, skills, and weapons that, man, let me just go down the line. You all at this point know about Farsight, and that's about as much of a literal Red Ranger as you're gonna get. But don't get me wrong, not all of the 8 have insanely weird backstories. Like Archon, for example, isn't anything weird, he just has an incredibly tactful mind and was really good at developing technology to grind guardsmen to a finer pace than they usually get grinded to. But then we got Brave.
Well, it does. Wait, no. So there is no. We talked about this earlier. There's no evidence to actually prove that. And if there was, it would seem that the Tau would already surpass the human technology if they already had access to the other ones. However, I know that is one of the theories, but I've been told that that is one of the weaker theories, and the Tau actually just developed because of their collaboration. Look at me learning! Law learning! Boom!
Storm. And if you thought Oshova was the only Tau badass enough to go in a melee, this guy was one of the first XV8 pilots to strap on the experimental Onager gauntlets during the Damocles Crusade, as he literally just punched tanks to death until he was struck down at Black Thunder Mesa. He escaped with his life, but now is relying on his crisis suit for life support. But when you're in an iron lung with enough plasma firepower to make a Skitarii blush, I don't think it's that problematic. Then we've got Commander Brightsword, a longtime friend and ally in arms of Farsight. There isn't too much to say about this guy aside from his natural ability to mulch orcs for a living, but there's an interesting side note to him. 7 other generations of commanders took his name, much how other Japanese warriors would inherit their predecessor's name. Look at you, Hattori Hanzo. Though the fun fact here is that it wasn't 7 different Tau individuals taking the name, it was 7 clones of the same guy taking up the mantle. See, this is why I'll always love the Tau more than the Imperium. Tech heresy is dumb, and you're dumb if you believe in it. And speaking of tech heresy, up next is old Oblatai 9-0. Unlike the majority of the 8, Oblatai rocks a missile rack like a robot of his very own. And I say robot, not suit, because Oblatai is technically an artificial intelligence engram unit, not flesh and blood. He's basically the Star Trek Next Generation Data of the group, but with the ability to download himself from a busted broadside suit to a humble Tau drone, then re-upload himself into an advanced stealth suit. Actually, I take that back. Based on his humble and self-sacrificial nature, I think he's actually more like the Iron Giant. But they're still not the most out-there member of the 8. Shavastos, saved by Farsight from a state...
Welcome to YouTube, Fasaria! You're right, Adam can't, but Dan is here, so Dan does have the power here. But you're right, Adam does not have the power on the YouTube.
Mandated lobotomization ordered by the Ethereals was the first to be implanted with the experimental Puretide neurochip, basically a downloaded supplement of Farsight's teacher's brain. Yay, more tech heresy! Even for the Tau though, this one's kinda riding the edge. In fact, Shavastos had to be put in a cryosleep until someone could reconfigure the chip correctly so it didn't obliterate his brain. And the Tau responsible for that and all of the above-mentioned technical marvels and heresy is none other than the Stone Dragon himself, Ovesa. A bizarre mix of Tony Stark, Dr. Wily, and Eggman all rolled into one, just minus the megalomania and alcoholism.
You can't butter up Dan. Dan is one of the least butterable mods. He is, like, so strict. I only have 3. I hope Pasaria isn't actually upset with me, says Adam. By the way, Pasaria, just so you know. Pajamas on, bulb hat, clean sheets, lovely streamer. I'm all set down to work, wind down for my work now, but you're adorable, I love you, and I'm making a beef roast after this.
Of eccentricity, though, Ovesa is likely the smartest scientist the Earthcast has ever seen, responsible for Bravestorm's life support XV8, Brightsword's clones, Shavastos' Puretide chip calibration, Oblatai's everything, and finally his own life-elongating tech. And how does Ovesa keep himself alive for generations on end? Nanomachines, son. Oh, and did I mention that he pilots the group's biggest mech? An XV-104 Riptide, baby! That's like if Billy from Power Rangers had a Megazord all to himself. Finally, we have the youngest member of the 8, Sub-Commander Torchstar, the internet's greatest poster child of Tau canonically possessing tits. Though I suggest you never say that out loud to her unless you want to catch the business end of twin flamers controlled by a Tau pyromaniac so hot-headed Vulcan himself would tell her to turn it down. And that about covers the 8. I hope you can understand now why they're absolutely kick-ass.
Yeah.
It's kind of funny. They actually remind me of the 7 Samurai, Kurosawa's legendary film, wearing 7 different Ronin who had long lost...
Yo, Jezebel, thank you for 100 bits! Yo! I was gonna say bitch, but I said it anyway. Yo, bitch, what? Thank you so much. I appreciate you. I appreciate you. I do. Thank you, my love.
Clans are trying to find new purpose in protecting a small village from a band of samurai-turned-bandits. I don't know, it's like this theme of falling away from a militaristic government that controlled everything into dismal nothingness, only to find a new purpose of protecting the people from real threats. Maybe I'm just shoving in Japanese-isms that aren't really there, but either way, the 8 are just so freaking cool.
Thank you for lending a hand, Gaijin Gooba. Turns out it is possible to not talk completely out of your ass when you make YouTube videos. Who'da thunk it? As for the worlds in the Enclave, there's not many, but they're cool as hell. Very sci-fi. I recommend you go and read about them because the Warhammer Wiki will do more justice to them than I ever could, but I'd like to talk about one of them, Tenekla. Tenekla is a giant transparent crystal planet that some of the Tau engineers took a good long look at and decided it would look much better as a polyhedron. So what else do they do but shear its surface into one giant, smooth, geometrically perfect shape? Legend says that anyone who goes near it hears a voice whisper in their ear, telling them that a new hand touches the beacon. While you're recovering from that mental flashbang, the reason I like that planet so much is because of just how unnecessary it is. There's no strategic, tactical, or industrial reason as to why they turned the planet into a giant gemstone, they just did it because they could. And you know what? Warhammer 40k is lacking in people who do things like that just because they can. Unless I'm missing something, which to be fair is not unlikely at all, it's just Trayson stealing things for his museum for shits and possibly giggles, and this thing. I want more things that exist for no better reason than the people who did it flexing on everyone else. Now, I've mentioned by this point that I think they're just straight up good guys, and I mean it. They don't conquer worlds, they don't genocide anyone, except orcs and Tyranids, but if there's anyone worth killing, it's them, and they even allow human deserters and refugees from the Imperium to settle on one of their worlds. True, they still have the caste system, but I read that in this case more as them having people specialize fields in a way that resembles what they're already used to. Not a rigidly defined hierarchy kept in control by the Ethereals like the Tau Empire proper has, but they're still grimdark. How is that? They're grimdark by virtue of the fact that in the grand scheme of things, they're nothing. For every human life they save from the Imperium, a billion more are worked to death in some factory or thrown into a fight they can't possibly hope to win. Nothing they do will cause any of the factions, even one as small as the true Tau Empire, to seriously consider changing their doctrines. Why would they? This group of people has 4 systems, that's nothing. The only reason they're not invaded regularly is the same reason the rest of the Tau aren't invaded often. It'd be disproportionately difficult to take compared to what any conqueror would get out of it. I mean, which target is more worth dealing with? The people with the Meridia's beacon planet minding their own business, or the rampaging Orc horde that just slaughtered an entire Titan legion? They're vastly outnumbered by every other faction, even the Eldar, and are certainly outmatched by them as well. The only possible reason I can really see them getting invaded is if the Eldar want their god's toy back, assuming it actually is one of Val's old swords. They can ultimately do nothing to affect the grand setting of Warhammer 40k. Maybe, and this is a real big maybe, Farsight might launch a coup of the Tau Empire so GW can make it go back to being how it originally was before they grimdark it up a notch. But that would just put them in the situation the Tau are already in, that of being completely outnumbered and outmatched by everyone else. Hell, that sort of civil war might end up weakening the Tau enough for someone to come in and conquer them. In short, they're not grimdark because of what they do, they're grimdark because of what they can never do. Because of how small this bright spot is in the shithole of a galaxy the Milky Way is in the 41st millennium. And you know what? I'm glad for that fact. It makes them special. The fact they're not worth conquering means that somewhere, even in just the corner of Warhammer, people are able to have a generally good life. Even if you need to look deep to find it, there's still good people in this galaxy. Not good deep down, but forced to do evil by everything around them, or good in comparison to the literal demons they have to face, just straight up good. So there's the Farsight Enclaves and the history of the man who created them. Hope you enjoy this brief look at the only decent people in this galaxy. And thanks to Guy.
That's actually really funny. Like, the Tau are a weird one. Yo, thank you for the follow! Skibbertau, welcome in! Yeah, no, I think it's really weird with the Tau. They're a very interesting race, I know, contrary to what y'all will say. But I do think it's interesting because I think that a lot of the Tau are, like, they have so much potential. And I think if they just, like, branched out a little bit more, they would definitely have a better time of things. So I'm going to play the outro, and then I'm coming right back.
Brought to you by the Chaos God. In the name of Slumber. Your favorite chaos-based lore show. That's some nice armor. Welcome in, Robo Gillyman! Robert Jellyman. Take Gorilla Man, Cleverman. Reboot Gilgamesh. Choose your side wisely. Put it in the Beasteria. I knew you were gonna. And rise up against the Emperor of Man. Brought to you by the Chaos Gods.
I stand by all those mods. They are all fantastic mods. And this is why I don't need any more. I've got Alpaca, Blood, I've got Adam, I've got Nat, I've got Gonk, I've got Hansel, I've got myself, I've got Stefano, Johnny Frost, Dan, Michael, Monkey Ranger, I nearly said his real name, Medi, and Shauna, and Suki. I've got everyone that I need. I've seen quite a few of them, but in other places. Anyway, this isn't about my mod team. Hello everyone, thank you so much for coming in. That was the Tau. They're very interesting. I enjoyed it a lot. I am proud of you all for getting through today. I'm even more proud of you for getting through tomorrow. And Wiedersehen, arrivederci, gutes Schules, luego. Peace. I will see you on the next one. See you Monday. Bye.